What's up YouTube? Ryan Paney here. Hope you guys are doing reasonably well. This is the list that I'm either super late on every year or sometimes miss altogether. So I'm pumped to be getting this out there in a relatively reasonable window. For me, hip hop was the big thing this year. There are a lot of genres that are represented here on this list for sure, but just after a few years in a row of feeling kind of down and kind of pessimistic about at least the big blockbuster hip-hop releases not delivering, I feel like 2022 was a welcome change of pace for me. But we've got a lot of different styles to discuss here. As always, definitely be sure to comment below with your list so I can catch up on whatever you've been listening to. I'm sure nobody else but me divides their listening into one genre versus all the other genres, but it keeps me sane, and it's especially relevant nowadays when I don't really talk about much other music on this channel besides rock and metal. I used to years ago. I used to talk about hip hop and pop, etc., but nowadays it's kind of mostly metal. So this list is more of like a fun exception. But in reality, I'd say about like 40% of my listening is not metal music. So it's still a good chunk of what I listen to, and I'm sure you guys also have interests outside of rock and metal. So hopefully you discover some great albums on this list, and I look forward to reading your list as well. And let's count it down. So number 10 is actually the only country album on this list, which is probably my fault. No fault of the genre at large. But Brett Eldredge's Songs About You, it's a record I really enjoyed. He's a prominent writer as well as artist in his own right. Lots of really smooth and well-written earworms on here. Like any great country record, it's definitely wistful at times. Two of my favorite songs on here are Want That Back and Home Sweet Love. But it's heartbroken at other times. Get Out of My House is another highlight. But there is still room for being love struck. There's that song Where Do I Sign? It's very charming, and there are songs like the title track where all of these or many of these emotions are kind of woven together. And that's what I enjoy most about this record, is just how it makes me feel. That's the great thing about country, at least good country music. It's so intimate and personal. It's almost confessional, to the point where country music is, at least country music of this variety, is not about the world as much as it's about his world. And very seemingly minute but ultimately intimate details that make it that sort of vehicle for escapism that a lot of people like. Brett is a great songwriter, so definitely give this a shot if you like country and haven't heard it. Favorite songs: Where Light Meets the Sea, Get Out of My House, and the title track. The Weeknd is next with Dawn FM. 2020's After Hours was by a pretty significant margin my favorite record of his, and Dawn FM feels like a completely logical progression after that record dabbled in this brighter and more synth-driven sound, especially when you consider the massive success of a single like Blinding Lights. But what I actually enjoy most about Dawn FM, besides of course those huge synthesizers and the massive hard-hitting rhythmic stomp of tracks on here like Sacrifice and Take My Breath, what I enjoy most besides those elements is just how much it truly feels like an album. The spoken word interludes here are fantastic and do so much to add to the cohesion of the album. And within these interludes and these transitions between songs, there's such a concerted effort to make things feel very nocturnal. And all Weeknd projects have had this feel, but it's especially apparent here. Maybe just because it's a little more theatrical. And then the real crooners on here, like Out of Time and Is There Somebody Else, work just as well as those high energy moments that I mentioned before. The great Tyler, the Creator feature that shows up, the Lil Wayne one is fun. Those are two great collaborators to round this thing out. And I mean, what else is there to say? This is a great record that was also well received, as it should have been. Favorite songs: Sacrifice, Is There Someone Else, and Out of Time. Those are three songs I've particularly beaten to death. Number 8. This fucking album was days old when I first put this list together, but I just had to include it. And now it's been out for a while, so this will show you just how long it takes me to find time to shoot. But Lupe Fiasco's Drill Music in Zion, a fantastic but super under the radar release, especially for a beloved artist of Lupe's stature. And that's a fucking shame, because to my ears, this is the best Lupe album in a decade. Definitely better than Tetsuo Youth, which is overrated in my opinion. Here's the thing with this record. If to you a rap album is all about the guy rapping, like the quality of rap music is a man or woman putting words together in a certain way, then this is the best rap album that I've heard all year. If you're into mural Lupe, if that's your jam, then you're gonna fucking love this record. The bars are insane. Content is densely packed, but it's just wrapped up in so much impressive lyricism that I'm still kind of digesting. Lupe sounds very relaxed on this record, but he also has a lot to say. Very little in the way of gaudy pop hooks, which has been a downfall of previous Lupe releases, and thank God. I think maybe the closest thing we have to that is the song Precious Things. The beat selection here, all of it. Please, if you're a hip-hop fan, do not sleep on this. For favorite tracks, I love the jazzy title track. I've come back to that probably the most. Miss Mural, speaking of the song Mural, and maybe Kiosk. Blast with his debut album Before You Go. I have to imagine that his appearance on the Kendrick record significantly boosted his profile, but the reality is that he's been bubbling for years now. And I, for one, am so pleased that this first proper full-length is just as effortlessly listenable as it is. Nothing fancy, no big concepts, no huge blockbuster features except for maybe Rick Ross, no skits, no obvious pandering, just great listenable song after great listenable song. And sometimes that's all it takes, especially with a genre like R&B that can get so bloated so quickly. His melodic instinct here is so sharp. His voice is inviting and easy on the ears, as are the instrumentals, which are similarly understated and very well selected for what he's talking about, as well as just how he's flowing and the intonation in his voice. It feels really just like an especially polished mixtape, and I mean that in the best way possible. Favorite tracks on here: Fake Love in LA. I do love the Luxurious. I Couldn't Wait for It with Rick Ross, and Still on My Way probably. Bonobo, Fragments. Great chill electronic album to just vibe to. There are some especially tuneful moments like that beautiful track Tides with Jamila Woods, but beyond that you're mostly just disappearing into these very meditative and peaceful and calming electronic soundscapes like Rosewood and Closer and Age of Phase, which are probably my 3 favorite songs as well. It's just a great album to study to write to, or just relax and vibe to. Charli did it again with Crash, which to me feels like a very reasonable step from her great pandemic album How I'm Feeling Now, in that with this record you still kind of retain that super concise song structure and that very to the point and kind of cheeky delivery that she has, but on this one the songs are way less insular and way more pop for the masses than, like I said, the insular and very self-contained music on How I'm Feeling Now, which felt like she was just making for herself. God, these hooks on here are just fucking massive. The song Yuck is probably one of my favorite songs of the year so far, and it has so much charm and wit to it. Also feels almost like a throwback and almost like 80s influence, as well as several other songs on here, which to me is a contrast to what Charli is generally known for, which is making pop music that's actually very futuristic sounding, even though it may borrow from different eras, of course, of the genre. Yeah, this album, besides maybe my number one on the list, I've listened to it as much as anything here. It is so instant and won me over so quickly that I do have to see how it ages, but man, like several of my favorite songs of the year are on here. Yuck, obviously I gotta shout out, Every Rule, and Used to Love Me. I love Joywave, and I continue to love them on Cleanse, which is their 4th album. The 3rd album, Possession, got a similar placement on my 2020 list, and I enjoy this one just as much as that one. For different reasons though. Here, I love how strategic Joywave are with when to incorporate guitar into their sound, because it doesn't always make sense, even despite kind of the overall indie genre that they come from. There are moments on here, like a great example of this is Pray for the Reboot. That song is completely synth-driven until you get to this like kind of turning point in the song where it feels like it needs a shot in the arm, and then a perky guitar riff shows up just at the right moment. I think there's a lot of sharp arrangement like that on here, even when it's flipped, like on the song We Are All We Need, where you have a lot of guitar until the song kind of feels like it needs a breather, it needs a little bit of space. And I think Joywave's strategic use of guitar in particular is maybe my favorite thing about the record. In addition to just great songs, which since Dangerous came out, that's what they've been best at. Favorites on here, Goodbye Tommy. I mean, they go 10 for 10 on this track list, so you can't really go wrong. But Goodbye Tommy, Every Window is a Mirror, and We Are All We Need. Wet Leg, self-titled. This record had a lot of hype around it, and for me at least, it did not disappoint. It's exactly what I want from indie music of this variety. It's funny and it's quirky at times, yet of course, like any good record like this, there are real poignant moments that are hidden beneath that veneer of irony and detachment and the kind of just being over it of it all. For one, at least for me, hearing a drum set sound like a fucking drum set is a thing of beauty, unlike basically all the other records on this list. There are some noisy post-punk moments here, but in reality, it's a very pleasant, very accessible record. It's not nearly as challenging as I thought it might have been, which wouldn't be a bad thing either, but I'm just saying this is definitely an album with a lot of crossover appeal, and I cannot wait to hear more from this duo. Favorites on here, Wet Dream, Piece of Shit. I'm just going off song titles now. Wet Dream, Piece of Shit, and Being in Love. 3 great tracks to start with. So I mentioned hip-hop having a great year at the top here, and now here we are at number 2, and it's Denzel Curry, May My Eyes See Your Future. I feel like a 26, 27-year-old Denzel is significantly less abrasive than his early years, and now he just sounds content to just be a rapper. He sounds comfortable in his own skin to the point where he's just confident that his unique voice will shine through even when he's not playing around with genre conventions and being completely over the top in his delivery, and that's exactly what happens here. I mean, the music speaks for itself. He's a top-tier lyricist. He's got a real gift for crafting songs and hooks, like Worst Comes to Worst is maybe one of my favorite Denzel bangers yet. There's some unreal bars on here, like, God, I'm going to forget some because I didn't write anything down, but of course the Run the Jewels bar, he says, "Run the jewels, cause I kill the mic, Killer Mike, on any LP." Like there's shit like that all over this record. I love this guy. He's distinct. Like he's of a slightly younger generation, but he doesn't at all sound like a Travis Scott or Kendrick or J. Cole baby. He's in his own lane, and while I definitely do love to still bump Imperial, I'm also enjoying his maturation and his evolution as an artist. So yeah, listen to the whole album if you can. And number 1, very easy for me. You probably deduced it by now, but Kendrick. I doubt this record is going to be my number 1 at the end of the year because it is such an intense and such a depressing listen. But if we're going to go on number of times you've returned to an album as a key indicator here, Kenny's got to be number 1. There's been a lot said about this, of course. There's a fucking 30-minute Vantana review on it, but what I'll say is that it's vulnerable enough to just make art and put it out there for people to consume and criticize or whatever, but there's a special vulnerability to make art about how fucked up you truly are being as beloved as Kendrick is. Like, this guy's gotten all the accolades, all the bells and whistles, and I think there's something special about someone in that position to say, hey, you know what, fuck you guys. I'm sick of sitting up here on this pedestal, which I may or may not have contributed to building, and pretending that I'm not genuinely fucked up too. I greatly respect the vulnerability of that, and I think he did have a lot to lose in exposing some of this, which is, evident in some of the backlash, especially the song Auntie Diaries. If Section 80 to Pimp Butterfly, especially that run of albums, was about Kendrick making sort of systematic examinations about how fucked up the world is, this record, Mr. Morale, is about him taking that surgeon knife and turning it on himself, which is equally fascinating, just very different. And him doing it so viscerally is also what was unexpected for me. You've heard this album, so no need for me to go on and on about it, but if for some reason you have it, definitely give it a listen. And that is the 10. Thank you so much for watching and tuning in, especially if you made it all the way here to the end. I gotta imagine there's something here that you haven't heard that hopefully you'll discover. And yeah, here's to hoping that July to December is as good as this year's been so far. But I am fucking loving 2022. I hope you guys are too. As always, thank you so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and are not yet subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so by clicking right over here, as well as checking out any other music-related content that I publish here on a regular basis. I really appreciate you guys watching, liking, disliking, just engaging in any fashion. Twitter, Instagram handle @RyanPannyMusic. Again, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I will see you soon.